Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Noble with Bryan. Good morning, everybody. Sorry about that. A few technical difficulties this morning, but welcome to Noble with Bryan. I'm glad you guys could join in. It is Thursday morning, so close to that weekend, weather getting a little bit cooler. And I am excited because it is bonfire weather. I'm from the north, so this is my kind of weather right now. Always enjoy the fall. Hope everybody's having a great one. Today, I wanted to do things a little bit different in that we focus on the stock market so much in that side, and I love talking about that. But I wanted to flip it a little bit and talk about fixed incomes because I think it's really important for people to understand how you can actually create just income from your investments as well, not just looking at stock market ups and downs and that, but really focusing on different ways to invest your money that maybe you can create income streams, almost like having a rental property and creating some kind of rent payment, or even just living in retirement and saying, I don't need the market, I just need a consistent paycheck through my retirement or my living situation. So I am going to kind of dive right into it. Like I said, we have Henry coming up here shortly to talk a little bit about his story. But before we get into that, I really just wanted to quickly go through a few things that I really love to show people as far as understanding how your investments work and how income works. So loan versus own. This is the easiest way to think of anytime you ever put your money in anything, you're probably doing one of these two things, loaning or owning something. When you loan it, that's when you buy a bond. If you buy a CD, you get a savings account. There's bond unit trusts, bond mutual funds, and bond ETFs. What you're essentially doing is giving your money to a company or a bank or some other entity, and they in turn are paying you interest on what you gave them. So you are loaning your money to them, almost like your mortgage works for you when you pay the bank. They gave you money, you got to pay them back with interest. So you're just flipping that script and doing the same to other companies that may need some funds to do a project or just want to rent it out to other people. The own side of things, and this is where most people think of on the investing side, this is where you're buying a stock. So you're buying a piece of a company, stock mutual funds, you buy real estate, and you buy stock ETFs, which are similar to stock mutual funds. But again, if you think of it that way, there's this loan aspect of making money, and there's also own. You can do either of those. Both are great strategies depending on what you are trying to achieve, but it's a good way to kind of think in your head what you're doing with your money. So talking about bonds, sometimes you'll hear them called fixed income nowadays, but we'll stick with the word bonds for the most part right now. You essentially are just lending your money to a company, a municipality, etc. So your local government, city or state may need to want to build a park and they need to raise money. So they'll go out and ask the community, they'll sell bonds to them, pay them back an interest rate at some point so they can build that, create revenue, and then in turn give you some of that. At the end of a bond, you always receive your original investment at a set maturity date. So it's like a CD. A lot of people are familiar with CDs. Bonds work the same way, only on a lot larger scale. Anywhere upwards of 30 years, you could get a bond for. But at that maturity date, they are going to give you back that principal along with that interest you've earned over the time. And during the life of that, you will earn the interest payments just like you would in a savings account or a CD. Few characteristics. These are things I highly recommend you always look at when looking at bonds. If you're wanting to buy one, understand all these different areas. I'm not going to go into all the details. feel free to reach out if you want to hear more about them, but just make sure you are looking at all these components of it. The issuer, that is who is giving the bond. An issuer of a large, well-off company may be a lot safer than the mom and pop shop down the street that issued a bond, and how well they're going to be at paying that back, as well as surviving anything like a pandemic that occurs. Maturity date, again, understanding how long that it will pay interest and when you would actually get that original investment back. Call feature is a little bit different. Think of this as like when you refinance your house. Some bonds have built in that at any given point, maybe in 3 years, 5 years, they can actually just say, I'm going to give you your money back because I'm going to go get a different one at a better rate. So some bonds do have call features that may not get you to the maturity, but again, understanding that feature that just because you bought a 20-year bond, if there's a call feature on it for 5 years, you might not have that bond after 5 years. They might just give you your initial investment back. Understanding interest rate, this is pretty self-explanatory. This is what it's going to pay per year in interest. Price, again, pretty self-explanatory. Rating, we'll get into that a little bit later. And taxation, I'm not going to get into today. We're going to stop at rating so we can have some time for Henry to chat with us for a little bit. So again, really quickly, issuer. This is typically a government entity, a municipality, or a corporation. They're responsible for repaying you the principal and making interest payments. We'll use the example of Duke Hospital down the road for me just because it's right there. If they wanted to build a new wing, they may issue bonds to people that they could buy, and then they will pay interest on that so they could build their new wing, see more patients, increase their revenues. You would be getting paid by Duke. Duke would be getting paid by their new wing of their hospital. Bond maturities, you're going to hear 3 different types. They all have different risks associated with them. If you hear short-term bonds, that means it's a bond that has a maturity up to 5 years. If you hear intermediate term, that's a bond that's up to 6 to 15 years, and long-term is 16 years or greater. So it's, again, understanding when somebody says, oh, I've got this short-term bond, these are the time frames you're looking at, 5 years or later, intermediate or long. Again, there are pros and cons to all of them, and there are strategies and ways to incorporate all of them into a portfolio, but understand the terms you're hearing from people, what they mean, is always the first step in making solid investment choices. Talk about the call feature some. I'll quickly hit on it a little bit more. This is, an issuer will quickly issue the bond if or pay it out essentially if they can get a better interest rate. Like I said, similar to refinancing a mortgage, they want to get a lower interest rate, so they'll pay you off so they could go somewhere else that's willing to give them the money at a lower interest. Quick example, interest payments, the way they work is pretty straightforward math. So if a bond says it has a coupon, which is the interest payment of 5%, and the principal value, which is $10,000, or you put $10,000 into the bonds, that would pay you $500 interest a year. Typically, bonds pay twice a year, so you would get a check twice a year for $250. Again, pretty self-explanatory on how the interest works on stuff like that. Understanding bond prices and interest rates. Bond prices go up when interest rates go down and vice versa. So think of it as kind of the alter ego and seesawing back and forth. If it is a longer term bond, they tend to fluctuate a lot more than the short term bonds that we were talking about as well. Again, we can go into more details of that if you want to chat about that with me outside of the podcast. I would love to talk with you more about that, but just understand that prices and interest rates work opposite each other. So when we are in a low interest rate environment, the prices are high, and if the interest rates start going up, those prices of bonds will actually start dropping. How these interest rates impact value, again, these are just terms to know. Understand the word. If you hear premium, that means a bond is selling more than its actual value, and it's selling at, it's very valuable and people want it. So if you hear a premium of 105, we'll use that in the example, it's actually selling for 105% of its par value. Par value is always, 1 for 1. So if it was 105 coupon and 105%, and that 10,000 investment we talked about before, you would actually have to pay 10,500 to get it. The opposite side of that is selling at a discount. It means it's selling cheaper than what you would get at maturity. Again, same principle. It's whatever that number is, it's just a percentage of your investment, and that's what you would pay. Quickly on bond quality ratings, 3 big companies that look at S&P, Moody's, and Fitch. Investment grade and below investment grade are sometimes called junk bonds. You'll hear that term a lot. These are the ratings that you use. So if you see a rating of a bond on anything you're looking at, here is a great little chart that I have, and you can find them online everywhere, of what would be considered an investment grade and what is considered junk. And I'll show you what that means here on this next slide, is that the right side we're looking at is our junk bonds, or below investment grade. And those bars you're seeing is how much of a risk they have of defaulting. Defaulting means the company goes out of business, you lose your investment because they can't pay anymore, they filed bankruptcy. So you can see when you get into those riskier junk bonds, there's about a 50-50 chance of you not getting your money back at some point. That company is going to go under. Or if you look at the investment grade or those AAAs, a 0.9% chance of you not getting that initial investment back on top of the interest you're making. So again, investment grade is just a lot safer when you're looking at your investment strategies than junk bonds. Those interest rates on junk bonds can be very tempting and very alluring sometimes, but you could see there is a potential that you could technically lose that whole investment very quickly if you're not careful. This is looking at municipal ones, so this is government ones as well. Again, you see the same thing. There's never been, in this study, a AAA investment municipal bond that's ever defaulted, versus about 43% when you get into the junk bonds category on the other end of things. So understanding that yes, sometimes these things look great, especially those junk bonds, but understand this is where your risk is at. You could definitely lose that initial investment if you're not careful with what you're investing in. So keep that in mind. And with that, that's all I really wanted to hurry up and quickly cover this morning. I know it was a lot of information to throw at you. Hopefully you got a little piece of something out of it. But we're going to bring on Henry. He's got a great story, a great guy, and I am looking forward to chatting with him.
Hey, good morning, Bryan.
How's it going today?
Good, very good.
I appreciate you, getting in this morning and taking a few minutes to chat with us. I know my audience is excited. We got a lot of New Yorkers here. David's here. We got Sandy and Joe. You're from that area originally, right?
Yeah, actually from New Jersey, and about 5 years ago, I moved out to North Carolina.
Okay. I guess I want to get into, typically on here, I have, we lost Henry. So yeah, while we wait for Henry to get back, so yeah, Henry is originally from up north. He's got an interesting story that, again, revolves around, he didn't, start a business. He's not, a lot of the guests we have on here. What he did do though is just make solid decisions, kept grinding it out at his 9 to 5, as we'll call it. Maybe not always 9 to 5, but ultimately he was definitely a success story in what we saw here. So with that, we can kind of jump back to the bonds as we're waiting for Henry to get on. I can kind of give you some more information on that as well. Now, let me pull my screen back up here and show you guys. So yeah, we'll jump into taxation here. Tax-free municipal bonds can really help provide a source of income that's free from federal and possibly state and local taxes. So again, understanding the taxation of these bonds, you can actually get around taxes with certain ones that you own. However, understand that, depending on your tax bracket, that AMT will get you sometimes, but there are ways to avoid taxes when it comes to bonds. Interest, if you though buy one in a corporate bond, that is taxable income. Another great chart that I love showing is understanding this. This catches up with a lot of people, and it gets a little confusing as far as taxable equivalent yield goes. Understanding the difference in a tax-free return versus tax equivalent. So we'll just use a quick example. I see Henry's able to get back on here. That if you got something in a 2% tax-free yield, typically you're in a 22%. That's like getting 2.56% interest rate, like let's say in your checking or savings account. So again, just some more information real quick. I'm going to bring Henry back on. Looks like he's back and ready to go.
Hey, Bryan. Oh, hey, Bryan.
Henry. How's it going?
Of all things, my laptop battery dies. Long story, but my son's living with us, and he of course unplugged the laptop, and all of a sudden I see battery low. So I switched computers really quick. So sorry about that. So,
no problem at all. I'm glad you're able to get back on. We'll kind of reset here and let's chat a little bit about where you're from, a little bit about you, kind of a little bit about your story.
Sure. So I've lived in New Jersey most of my life. About 5 years ago, we moved out to North Carolina, and I basically had to make a decision. I was working for a company at the time, and they either said, hey, you got a severance package or a relocation package. So they were moving operations out here to Cary, and I decided to move along with them because I've been with them so many years, and now I'm with them 21 years. So it was the right choice for me and the family.
Yeah, it's always amazing that you kind of always wonder if you're making the right or wrong choice, but always you look back and you're like, that was my path, and it always works out in the end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
I know we definitely chatted, before this. I guess I'm always interested to hear stories for someone like yourself of, you didn't hit the lottery. There wasn't anything, major windfalls or anything in your life. You were just a hard worker. What was it that kind of early on, was there something that kind of instilled in you of, long-term planning, or just your ideas or concepts around money?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, I don't like owing money to anyone. That's one. And second, I don't like people owing me money either. But anyhow, I guess it's kind of a story where hasn't been a successful road the whole way. But in the beginning, I probably fell into that trap of credit card debt a little bit, and it was pretty scary because when you look at the interest rates on those credit cards, when you're sending in those payments, you're just touching the interest and not really hitting the premium, so the principal. So that was a little scary. And then, the first company I worked for, I learned a lot of things around, like one thing I kind of take with me all the time is this thing called the Rule of 72, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and how money basically doubles, every so many years. So basically, if anyone doesn't know about Rule of 72, whatever interest rate you're earning, you divide it by 72, and that's the number of years it takes for your money to double. And that makes a big difference starting your retirement and any type of planning. The earlier you can start, the better it is. And with me, the first company I worked for, so here's one of my, I guess, downfalls. I worked for a company, had a 401k, and then, I wanted to get into a house and so on. So probably didn't make the best decision, but I took that 401k money and I spent it. But it went into the house and paying off bills and things like that. But if I look at what that money would have been worth today, that many years later, I kick myself sometimes. So I say sometimes it was a mistake, and other times, well, maybe it helped me get to the next point. I'm not recommending people do that by any means. But what it did was, then I said, I kind of had to do like a reset at that point. And I switched companies around that time. Was the big Y2K, and a lot of companies were hiring. So there was an opportunity to move to another company. So I jumped to another company and just put in the 401k and just kept on putting money in. I started getting to a point where I, started doubling down. Well, not initially. I started putting more money towards my house and finally paid that off. And then some smart decisions along the way, I think, just with college planning and things like that. I started working with, obviously I worked with you and I'm still working with you now. Just some things about even college, just trying to make decisions about, okay, my son going to a 4-year school. So does he necessarily need to go to that 4-year school? Maybe he could start some credits off at a county college first, save tons of money, and you're still getting that degree from that other school.
I tell people all the time that people look at my resume when I graduated, they just wanted to make sure I had a degree. It didn't really matter where I got.
Right. So yeah, and so now my house is paid off, and it's such a burden. It's such a freedom now. Now I have some more options. I could think about okay, saving a little bit more for my other son's college, because I have three boys, and also just have a little more freedom here. And then I did a check on where I stand as far as my Social Security, my pension, 401k, and I think I'm right now positioned pretty well, to retire if not yet, but retire around. I guess the target is 62 right now, but we'll see. I like to keep active too, so who knows what'll happen.
So talking about targets, we definitely had a unexpected thing come this year with COVID. How did that change your opinion or your thoughts or change anything in your financial strategy?
Wow. So I guess we've gone through these situations numerous times. We've had what was it? I guess 2008. We had the issue with the market, and other times. And of course, this is something different we've never experienced. But I'm just waiting it out. I mean, of course, I was nervous. I saw the market go down under 20,000 at one point, but as you can see, it bounced back. It's at 27,000 or something today. So it's coming around. So I think we go through these cycles regardless of what happens. And I've called you a couple of times throughout the way. I'm like, hey, Bryan, I'm a little nervous. What's going on? And you told me, and you mentioned, don't worry about it. It's going to bounce back. And sure enough, I guess we go through these cycles. It happens.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. If there's any piece of advice that you really shared to my audience out there, those that are going to be watching this, is there something that kind of stuck with you that really made a difference as far as how you look at not only your investments but what you want your money to do for you?
Yeah, I think it's one, to get good with a financial planner, to see where you get that baseline of what you have today, and then start some planning. The earlier you do this, the better, because like I said, that rule of 72, it makes such the difference. I mean, if your money's doubling every 8 years, I mean, you go from, even starting with a small amount, 25,000, 50, 100, 200, so on, and having that doubling effect, especially in those later years, it can get crazy. And that's where it makes the difference. So the earlier you start, the better it is. That's for sure.
Definitely, and that's a great, I think, lesson of, especially if you have children, of even if they don't understand it, helping them start early. When they get their first job or while they're in college, of just getting something small in there. And that rule of 72, like you're saying, if you did it when you're 20. And had $10,000 in there, say at 30, you're looking at 20, at 40, that's 40, at 50, that's 80, at 60, that's 160. So for a $10,000 investment, very early in their life, that they've already got, 200,000 sitting in an account waiting for them later on. So that's definitely extremely important that, I emphasize. The other thing that I definitely admire about you is, I've found a lot of people, when it comes to finances, there isn't a class in school really that teaches you how to invest in your IRA or how the market works and things like that, that your self-knowledge and just of kind of soaking it in and understanding what you're doing as well, even though you may not be managing it all the time, but understanding basic principles. I've definitely always seen that with you. And that's why I think a lot of your success comes from is that, you've gone through some crashes, you've gone through some ups, you've gone through some downs. But you understood what was happening, and how to make not necessarily always the right decision, but smart decisions.
Right, and I guess you hit it on the head there, Bryan. Getting a little education around this. I know you offer some information sessions, obviously doing this podcast. So I think it's important that your viewers and everyone gets that education, and gets it early and teaches their kids these principles and so on, because it's such a value, and it can make such a difference in, their financial planning, their retirement, and so on. So.
Yeah, I highly agree with you. Well, I don't want to keep you anymore today because we've got to work, right? Get ready for the week.
Too, actually.
But is there anybody, anything you want to, end with? Give a shout out to anybody. I saw Mary was watching, so hi, Mary. Hopefully all is well.
I'll give a shout out to my wife. She's an author. You could probably see a little bit of her books back there. So catch her on Amazon. So, same last name. But just want to say it's been really good. You've been my financial advisor for the last, 4 years or so. And, Bryan's a great guy, very personable and so on. He calls me up on my birthday and stuff. But no, it's important to get with a good financial advisor too. And just to give you a plug, Bryan, it's been great all these years and stuff like that. And hopefully, you'll be in so many years, you'll be helping me plan my retirement checks. So.
Yeah, we got it. So, Henry, I appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit of your story. I definitely want to make sure the audience understands, anybody can do this. It's really just having a plan, getting a little bit serious about it, and just strategizing some, and then working the plan, and it works out for you. So, Henry is a great inspirational story to me. Like I said, of somebody that just worked hard, raised a great family, and just is an overall great guy to chat with. And I was lucky enough to have him talk with you guys for a little bit. So, Henry, I'm going to let you go. Let you enjoy the rest of your day. Tell the family I said hi.
Okay. Take care, Bryan.
Henry. Bye.
Take care.
All right, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed that little chat. Like I said, typically we have a lot of business owners on here, but I wanted to give the opportunity for someone to really get understand of a situation of you don't have to be a business owner to kind of get that financial freedom in life. You can work hard and just make some smart decisions, or find some people that can help you make those decisions, and it will typically work in your favor. So don't delay, don't hesitate. Doesn't matter your age, where you're at. Obviously, the younger, the better. But it doesn't matter if you're 50 or 5, which I doubt you're not watching it at that age. But please just put in a little bit of work, and you will reap the rewards of proper investing. So hope everybody has a great day. Have a great Thursday, great weekend, and I will see you soon on No Bull with Bryan.